Oh my God. As Bill O'Reilly once said, we are doing it live, folks.
We are doing it live.
I can't believe it. We are here. It is Meredith Lynch and my old pal, Rebecca Sananès, and we are doing our first episode of The Moment in studio. I'm so excited. It's a special bonus moment episode. We have Jessica Valenti coming in a little bit, and we are going to go through we've got notes on notes because we're going to go through all the absolute insanity that was Project 2025 that we are now living. And now there is a new report from the Heritage Foundation that we are going to go through with Jessica. You know her from her incredible Substack, Abortion Every Day. And she has just such a handle on where all this stuff is. Yeah. But right now, I just want to say, I have a handle on where you are. Yes. You're right here with me, which is wild.
You know how like there's like a pandemic thing where like you don't know what people look like in real life. I mean, of course you and I do because we've spent a lot of time together, but this is like one of those feelings where it's like, whoa, real people, you know, like you never know how tall somebody is until, so big moment.
We look a lot hotter on this than we do on at home.
I think that's the idea. That's the that's why this is important.
I can't wait for my favorite account, Meredith Lynch Get Braces, to chime in and be like,
actually you don't
still need braces. I had them. Okay. But I'm really excited to talk to you about this today because Project 2025 is one of those things that was happening. It was a conversation point during the 2024 election. Yep. And both the reactions of the Democrats and the Republicans to this document were quite interesting. Yep. And I want to ask you what you remember from that time.
I remember everybody on the left being like, this is 100% going to happen. Like this is very clearly a plan that the Republicans want to put in place. And I remember the Republicans saying the Democrats are hysterical. And we're going to go through a little bit and talk about why perhaps we weren't that hysterical. But I want to like let you lead because you did a lot of research here. So bring me back to what was actually being said in 2024.
Yeah. So I feel like I didn't know anything about the Heritage Foundation.
No, neither did I.
Yeah. I feel like I first started hearing about this really like towards the end of the campaign cycle. Like once, you know, Kamala Harris was fully in it, right? I started hearing about it. And so we have a clip. I want to play this clip of Kamala Harris when she was speaking at a rally about Project 2025.
And his agenda is all laid out in Project 2025. Which I still must say, I cannot believe they put that in writing. I mean, they put it in writing, they bound it, they handed it out. And if you get your hands on it, Google it. It's a detailed and dangerous blueprint for what he will do if he is elected president.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I remember.
Right.
Now remind me what he said about this. And then I want to talk about what's happening right now.
Yeah. Despite clips like that, we also had Trump saying, I know nothing of Project 2025. And it did come up in debates. We're going to play. We have a short clip of that.
I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do.
Okay. He always says that, by the way. It's always, everybody knows. Everybody said this. Everybody this. That's just such a tactic, I think.
It's such a tactic. And it's also like, he tells you what he's going to do beforehand. Like there's things we can talk about later in the week. Today's more specific, but like all the people who are like, I didn't know. It's like, well, we had a full plan, but I want to ask you a little bit about the history of the Heritage Foundations, but just to like get into it, let's get for real. what has been implemented, right? He said, I've never read it. I don't know anybody who's part of it. It's an extremist plan. Tell me what's actually being implemented a year later, because we know it is.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. So shortly after winning in 2024, Trump hires Russell Vought, who is a key contributor of Project 2025, and he's leading the Office of Budget and Management. And what's followed has been that about 40%, or no, excuse me. What has followed has been that the Trump administration can now trace back a lot of the orders that they've made, a lot of the things they put forward back to Project 2025. And we could talk a little bit about what some of those things are, but I just want to also remind people what the Heritage Foundation actually is, because I think it's super interesting. So they're not just Project 2025, right? They're a conservative think tank, and they were founded during the Nixon administration. And in the early years, they were really like, hey, we're pro-business. Yeah, we've got a Christian lens, but really we're anti-communist.
Yada, yada.
Yeah, right. Then when Reagan takes office in 1981, he hands out copies of the Heritage Foundation public policy to his cabinet in their first staff meeting.
Got it.
Okay.
So Heritage Foundation is like, it's actually not, I mean, this is such a it's not extremist in the way that it's like, oh, never heard of it. This is super fringe. It's like deeply embedded in the Republican think.
Totally.
world.
And but I think it's also interesting that it's been around for so long.
Yeah,
so it's the fact that like the first we even heard of it was, October of 2024. So obviously there's many things that the Reagan administration enacted that were based off recommendations from the Heritage Foundation. But more recently, the Heritage Foundation has been a voice in the appeal against the Affordable Care Act, and they've also helped provide Trump with nominees for the Supreme Court. So that was all in the prior administration. What's really interesting, and I texted you this last night, is that the whole concept, the whole basis of Obamacare comes from a 1989 lecture from a health economist who was working at the Heritage Foundation. So the basis of Obamacare.
And yet I still don't have good health insurance. And yet.
But let's talk about some of those things. You were saying what's been implemented, okay? So according to Reproductive Freedom for All, 40% of Project 2025's policies to restrict reproductive rights have been implemented.
Oh, wow. In the first year, you don't say.
40%.
Okay.
So there's that. NIH has canceled 800 million research grants for LGBTQ plus health, including studies around cancer and HIV prevention. Most of these cuts were upheld by the Supreme Court. Okay. Trump signed an executive order in January 2025 directing federal government to begin having more influence on K through 12 education.
Yep.
So these are just like a few of the things,
right?
Yeah. And also we've seen changes in the military around LGBTQ plus and DEI that also came from these recommendations of Project 2025. So I will say this. I was one of those people that like when I first heard about it, I was like, there's no way that there could be this extreme of a document that they're trying to enact.
I don't know if I just didn't know that they would be so successful. I think what was so scary about Project 2025 and seeing it is just how long the far-right conservative party has been planning things from every level. Because if you looked at Project 2025, it was like a document that was like, here are the levers of like, here's how you implement our vision.
Right.
And it included like the people, the policies, the ideals. Do you know Caroline Leavitt came out of a government training program from Project 2025? Brendan Carr, who was the FCC chair, who was part of the Jimmy Kimmel of it all. And so, I want to keep talking about this, but like part of why when I saw them put out this new, they don't call it Project 2026 now. It's called
We've been calling it
that.
And
the internet's been calling it that. But it's the Plan to Save American Families. The reason that I looked at it and was like, oh, I think this might be important is because they're clearly very, very good at implementing this type of stuff. Like it's things that they have done. And so by reading it now, it's sort of like, okay, can we get a sense of what they're planning or not planning for women's bodies specifically, but for LGBTQ people, for people who give birth, for families in general.
What's interesting to me about Heritage Foundation is like you say Moms for Liberty and like everybody knows that. Like I know exactly who they are. I know exactly what they stand for. They're great at galvanizing. MAGA's really good at galvanizing. Doesn't mean that we like them, but they're very really good at galvanizing.
Yeah.
So what's interesting to me about Heritage Foundation is they're kind of similar to that like old way of politics where they do so much, but like we don't know who they are.
Yep.
We like, I mean, now we do, but like
Yep.
I'm just saying, like 5 years ago, there's tons of think tanks in DC,
Yep.
and they're on all sides of the political spectrum.
Yep.
So what is it about Heritage Foundation that really makes these policies happen? Like, no one says to me that there's like this left-leaning thing that Joe Biden implemented all of their policies.
I mean, I get the sense that Heritage Foundation has been working on this forever. And I think that like a difference being is that they like deeply understand how government works.
Right.
In a way that, you know, like, and like, I guess it's possible that there's something similar now happening on the left with think tanks, but I think that this, you know, Project 2025 was something that they'd been working on for, I think, decades,
Right.
you know, and they were really, really organized about it. And wait, can you tell me more about the Supreme Court thing? Because I think that that's really interesting.
Yeah. So it was just they had a short list
Okay.
of potential nominees, and Trump. I mean, I guess the thing that I found interesting about this is like it's hard to say that Trump gets the nominees from the Heritage Foundation,
Right.
But when there's overlap, I think there was something like 5 of the same names. When there's overlap for nominees, that's where you can see like, okay, to your point, they're really good at getting in and like knowing those are the things that actually matter, right?
Yes,
Like, I mean,
right.
it's not to say that like electing certain representatives or senators isn't going to have a huge outcome, but the Supreme Court is like, that is going for the big dogs.
It's the big dogs, and it's a for life appointment.
Right.
And as we see, like the Congress and the Senate sort of like moves in and out, and right now in some ways like doesn't have that much power
Right.
in the way the Supreme Court does. And like this is one of the things I want to talk to you with Jessica Valenti, because I was like shocked and not surprised when the Roe v. Wade got overturned. Like it was both like, you know,
Right.
because think about how long everybody was like, that will never happen. Like, I can't tell you how many people in 2016 I was like, what's going to happen to abortion? Everybody's like, you know, chill out.
Right.
You know, like it's not a
Right.
big deal.
That'll never happen.
That'll never happen. And what's his name? Clarence Thomas
Mhm.
and John Roberts, like Sam Alito, like they're getting older, and I would not be surprised if they retire in a way that Ruth Bader Ginsburg didn't, and then Trump replaces them,
Right.
you know,
Yeah, in
and
a strategic way. And the nominees come from
the
the
Heritage,
Heritage
Foundation.
Foundation. Yeah, I mean, I think also too, when Trump was campaigning, one of the things he kept saying was he was like, I'm going to like, we want to keep it with the states. We want to keep it with the
Yep.
states. And now that he's actually in office, there have been a lot of things
to
that
federalize
it. So I think that I guess I just don't understand how anybody fucking believes him anymore.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I say this all the time is like, or, you know, like we're trying to make this a little bit more evergreen, but like this past week when he posted that like really blatantly racist.
It doesn't matter if this is this week, because next week he'll post
Right. So he'll post something else, but like,
racist.
but you know, something blatantly racist of the Obamas, so,
Right.
like a former president, and the amount of people on the right that I saw like clutch their pearls, and like, it's not to say that it isn't horrific or unacceptable or, you know, like all of those things, but I was like, yeah, this is the same guy that took out a full page ad calling for the death penalty of five
innocent boys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like this man has been who he says he is. And like over and over again, I feel like people are like, oh, can you believe? And it's like, yeah, I can fully. Trump is like pretty transparent in that way. Like,
and always has been.
and
So like to your
always
point,
has
that was
been.
what, 1989, 1981. Like
Yeah,
that's
somewhere in
right.
there,
So it's
yeah.
not like, but no, I agree with that. One of the things before Jessica gets here that was so I was like deep diving
Yeah,
the
I know
new
you were,
document,
yeah.
and I was having the
You love a
time.
deep
I fucking
dive.
love a deep dive. One of my favorite statistics that I found in there was basically what they were saying is like more people who get married that meet online are more likely to get a divorce. And so like,
Sure.
okay, fine. So then I'm
Sure.
like, right? I don't, who gives a shit?
Whatever.
But I was like, okay, cool. I want to see, because they were like, according to a study. So I was like, all right, I want to see the study. So I go on and I go to the study. The study is a link to a law firm blog. Okay. And then the blog links out to a study. And like, this is not a study in the way that like we would think of an academic study, but the thing that I also found so wild about this, the thing that I was like, wait, stop the fucking presses. This is a study that was done in the UK.
Oh, okay. So applicable, very applicable to United States policy.
And the whole fucking point of the Heritage Foundation is like, this is about US. Like
yeah.
if you came in and said, hey guys, this is working in the UK to make, they'd go, well, that's the UK. That's
right.
totally, we don't care about them. This is about US family values.
Yeah.
Da, da, da. So when you link to that and you don't say like, hey, we linked to that. Also, some of the things that I would link to, it would be like link dead.
Well, I think this is something that I found, and this is what part of what we'll talk about with Jessica is like part of what I found really interesting about diving into this, what we're calling Project 2026, is how many things, like how many like social ills they get right on the face. They're like, housing is too expensive and health insurance. It's like, they're like picking out things that are really easy for people to be like, yeah, I get that. And then they sort of like whittle it down into a way that it's like Christian heteronormative values that are about controlling women.
Yes.
And it like even I had to like sort of go back and forth. And this is one of the questions that I'm going to have for Jessica is like, how much does this have to do with the social trend of the trad wife that we're seeing? Because it's like, it's the same thing where it's like, there's an appeal to what they're putting out there. But if you kind of just like scratch under the surface, you're like, I don't think
I texted you about this last night, the porn of it all. They're like, the porn's not great for people. Like it's not a healthy way to like think of what relationships are.
Sure.
And I was like, yeah, I don't disagree. And like, I mean, not to be like, I've never had to deal with that in my personal life, guys. But
we're of a different generation too. I thought about this last night.
Really? Is that why?
Well, I think that like, I don't know, when I was like going through puberty, porn was like just starting to be accessible on the internet.
But like there are people I know in my life who deal with people in their lives who have porn addictions.
Okay.
And so, I mean, I think it is a real problem, just like
for Mike Johnson specifically.
just like drugs can be a real problem for
Sure.
some people. So when they're like, porn is like not a great representation of like a healthy, but like always healthy for a marriage or healthy for a long time. I'm like, yeah, it's probably true.
I think it's probably true. And why are you then cutting sex education?
Right. And,
You know,
and
it's
I am
like
not
that's-
advocating that we get
No,
rid of
no, no,
porn
no, I
or
know-
anything
I know
like
you're
that.
not.
But
I
I'm
know you're
like,
not.
yeah, there are people who are addicted to porn and it's not healthy.
No, totally. I'm not saying that
Oh,
you
no,
are.
I know you are.
My
I'm just like
point
waiting
is-
for the Reddit.
Totally. Yeah. No, my point is to like back you up and be like, they get things right. And then they undercut the thing that would likely actually make a difference in this social ill. And really, so that's why I think this is really interesting is like some of it on its face, you're like, okay, yeah, I get it. And then you dig a little bit deeper and you're like, but you're undercutting what would actually solve this problem in a way that would be good for the most amount of people and actually just sort of like honing in on how you control women and specifically women in marriage and then kind of erase everybody else is what I found. And the ways in which they do that are what I really am excited to talk to Jessica about.
Yeah.
And I think she might be joining us
real soon.
I also have to say, I'm like an ultra Jessica Valenti fan.
Oh, are you?
I'm an ultra.
I mean, I adore her too, but I think I know this is like,
This is
I
like-
remember when I met her, you were really jealous.
I was really jealous.
Yeah.
I remember, so she was like a writer in the, like Jezebel, but I remember I read a book of hers called Sex Object in 2016, 2015, somewhere around there. And it was like a breath of fresh air, you know, like when you're like, oh, I'm not crazy, like this thing, you know, and this was like before the Me Too movement, you know, like sometimes we think about things and we're like, oh yeah, that we did live in a different world. And so I've always just felt like Jessica Valenti had a specific thing. And then she does abortion every day as her Substack as her publication.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yep.
And I thought about it and I was like, it's very interesting that this was never an actual beat that I ever saw at a major newspaper. Like it is actually a really important beat. And there's things that I know, there are stories about the way abortion laws have been playing out in America that I literally would not know about if not for Jessica's reporting or like deep local news, you know, like this is a horrific story, but there was a story in Georgia of a woman who, you know, the story that I'm about to tell. Yeah. There was a woman in Georgia. I'm going to try and get the story right, who was terminally ill, was brain dead, but was 8 weeks pregnant with a fetus. And because of Georgia's abortion laws, they could not let her off life support, and they had to keep her. This is so disgusting. They had to basically keep her alive as an incubator for this fetus. And then I just saw an update. It was eventually delivered, but it's been living in the NICU for the entirety of its life. It's now 11 months old. It has, like birth defect. It's like, it is not a
And it's like the pain that you make a family go through
100%.
when someone's on life support, and you would want to remove them from that to give them
dignity,
some peace and dignity. And also it's like, what are their wishes? Now, like, not everybody has this, has had that conversation or has that in writing, whatever, but like, what are the wishes? It completely takes away the wishes of the family.
Yep.
And so, I was like I was actually looking at, and I don't know if we'll get to it, but I was looking at the birth rates since abortion was since Roe v. Wade, right?
Tell me more.
So 1973 Roe v. Wade, I think, is happens, and birth rates are kind of are lower, and then in the 80s they go back up.
Okay.
Now I think that's because a lot of boomers were turning the age of having children, right? So, but at the same time, I'm like, well, we haven't. It was higher than it was in the years after Roe is passed.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't even look at it, even if you want to play the game of, abortion made it that all these, no, we've watched, and now, yes, less people are having kids, but like, why don't we talk about the societal issues of that?
Yeah. Well, and also, I mean, I couldn't help but read this and be like, okay, but we're also putting children in cages. Like we're like we all saw Liam Conejo Ramos go to the Daily Detention Center. Like, how much do we actually care about children and like birthing children when some of them we put into detention centers? Give me a break. If the problem is that we don't have enough children in America, then like, why wouldn't you make more of these children US citizens instead of deporting them?
Also, the other thing I'd say is like this whole thing rags on single parents. And I think that's really like, it's just like, I remember hearing Mitt Romney say like, well, children need a mother and a father. And I remember feeling like, as somebody whose mom died, I was like, fuck you.
Yeah, fuck
like,
you.
My father's like, I don't care how you get there.
Yeah, we
but like,
both
would
had,
you say
like,
that
kind of
would you say that to me? Would you? No, you probably fucking wouldn't, but you never know how someone ends up.
That's right.
And even if it's not that way.
That's right.
Like, it's just, yeah. So anyway, sometimes I do want to just say, fuck you, Mitt Romney.
Yeah, fuck you, Mitt Romney. But you know who not fuck you?
Who?
Jessica Valenti, who's here with us. She's a writer. She's an activist. She's one of the country's most influential voices on gender politics. She's published 8 books. I've read like at least 7
She's
of
one
them.
of those people that like, actually, when you say her name, people go, oh, I read her book.
I know Jessica Valenti.
No, they go, oh, I read her book.
Totally.
It's like, nobody's.
No, I have a friend that I texted to tell her that Jessica was coming on that I wouldn't have texted, like, no offense, Padma Lakshmi. Like, this is big celebrity for like the feminists. Anyways, she's a former columnist for The Guardian, for The Nation. She's been in the New York Times, The Atlantic, Washington Post. She's been everywhere, and you can find her on Abortion Every Day. And here to talk to us, do we have Jessica Valenti in the house?
Yeah, hey.
Oh my God.
Oh, this is really, I promised Meredith I wouldn't fangirl too hard, but hey.
That's so nice. Hi. That was a very nice intro. I always like a fuck you, Mitt Romney.
Yeah,
intro.
fuck you, Mitt Romney. But although in this
Nothing wrong with
economy, it's like fuck Mitt Romney is the least of our worries. You know what I mean?
I mean, really and truly.
Really,
but like,
truly.
part of me is like, what did he set up to get us to the point that we're at, right?
All of them did. All of them set us up and laid the groundwork for this moment. And I mean, listen, most of them are happy it's here.
Yeah, they are. They're for sure happy it's here. So today we wanted to talk to you about, there's this new document coming out of the Heritage Foundation that is saving the American family for the next 250 years, which we're calling, for the purposes of this conversation, Project 2026. And we just set up for the audience why like this actually is likely to end up in our legal and policy system. So we wanted to go through some of the points that like stuck out to us and get your takes. So I wanted to start with, I was really struck by how much they were going after the welfare state and like how much that is affecting the American family.
Right.
Yeah, like it feels.
And it's like, what even is welfare anymore? Right? Like, people get food assistance, people get Medicaid. Like, I don't even know that there's a thing. There's no thing called welfare. You don't get a welfare check anymore, right?
I mean, you get assistance, but not if Republicans have anything to do with it, right? Like I think, Rebecca, you were saying something to this effect a couple of minutes before I joined, where it's they don't really care about the children that are here, the babies that are here. Like, this entire plan is very much, we want to force women, young women specifically, to get married early, have babies, you know, as young as possible, have multiple babies, get trapped in the home. But also, we don't want to give you any sort of meaningful support, no government program, no paid parental leave, no affordable, accessible childcare, just nothing. It's that, you know, pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality that is not at all helpful or useful. So, I mean, and that's why they're forcing people to have babies, right? Like, they're not making the culture or the politics pleasant to be a parent. So they have to force people rather than just make it nice.
With this welfare thing, it felt like to me in reading it that a lot of it was like, women have been marrying the government, which is why they haven't been getting married, right? That like truly,
Yeah.
like, I don't know if I pulled a specific quote, but like that was the general idea of it, is that like marriage rates have declined because between the 60s and the 90s, the welfare state went up. And as a result, women don't have to rely on a male partner. And so I guess, one, how much of that is true and how much of that is going away, I guess?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's all a bunch of bullshit. Like, the marriage rate has gone down, and there are more single women in the US, and there are more women without children in the US, because we weren't, up until recently, forced into that position, right? Women are more likely to be able to go to college, to have jobs, to be financially independent. And that's what they don't want to, I mean, and actually they do say this a little bit in this document. I wrote a column about this document today, actually, in the way that it targets young women. This is about feminism. Feminism made it easier for women to choose their life's path. And they are increasingly choosing not to get married for all sorts of reasons. And instead of sort of targeting young men and teaching young men, hey, you need to bring something else to the table other than a salary, they're targeting young women and making this whole, you know, welfare state, daddy government thing up. Because they want to be sneaky about the fact that it's really that they just want to roll back all of these really basic rights, right? Like, there's a reason in this document that they're so obsessed with the divorce rate and no fault divorce and making it more difficult for people to get divorced. You know, down to one of the wackiest things I thought, it's one of those things that it's such like a random policy drop in, but is so nefarious. Like, electing more family court judges who don't like divorce.
Oh, interesting.
So that when you try to go get a divorce from your asshole husband, a family court judge is like, no, I'm not gonna grant you, right? Like, so they're taking like this really specific, localized approach to making it harder and harder for women specifically to leave relationships. It's just all really insidious.
It's so insidious. I want to go into the education part in a second, but I do want to take like a quick little tangent and ask you, what do you think about, I've been hearing more and more of like conservatives being like, conservative feminism, and it makes my hair stand on end. But I wonder what you think, just like very, very quickly, about the word conservative feminism as we read this type of stuff, which I'm sure they will brand as conservative feminism.
Yeah, I think that what they like to do, and we saw this with Sarah Palin, right? Like, any feminist who came out against Sarah Palin was like, isn't this what you wanted? Isn't what you wanted to, you know, prop women up? There's a difference between benefiting from feminism and being a feminist, right? Like, I think that we have like devolved into this place where, aren't you a girl's girl? Aren't you supporting what women do? No, feminism is not about supporting every woman. Right? Like, it is a very specific social justice, political justice, economic justice push. So I just find it exhausting, but it is a sign of how powerful feminism is and how powerful feminist rhetoric and the feminist movement is, that they are working so hard to co-opt and appropriate feminist language, right? And we see this with the anti-abortion movement too. They're doing the same thing. And so that should give us a little bit of hope about how well feminism is doing culturally.
That's a good point.
They don't want us to go to college. They want us to get married. They want us to stay married.
Yep.
They want us to have lots of babies. And they don't really want
white babies specifically.
Right. But
Yeah.
and they don't want us to be wealthy.
No.
And
No.
at the end of the day, what do they think they will get out of that?
Good question.
I mean, it's a terrific question. I mean, I think it is, first of all, a lot of free labor, right? A lot of free domestic labor. And it really, for them, it's so much about building this really narrow world with narrow gender roles, right? And reasserting male control. I think that they do not want women in the public sphere, right? Like education, jobs, much easier to trap women in the home if they are forever pregnant. They just don't want us competing in the public sphere. They don't want us taking up space that they see as males' right and male spaces, right? Whether it's working or representing folks politically. They don't want us in government. Like, they fundamentally do not see that as women's roles. They see women's roles as supportive to the real stuff that men want to do. And so anything that they can do to push us back into that place is what they're going to do. And that's why we see all of this trad wife stuff. And one of the things I wrote is like, if they can convince young women that this is actually what they want, that this is actually a great thing, fantastic, right? It makes it a lot easier for them if a new generation of women believes, oh, well, actually, that sounds sort of great, and I'm going to do that. But at the same time, they have no problem forcing it. And that's part of the fun for them, right? Is the fact that we don't want it. That's part of the appeal.
Oh, you mean men like to force women to do stuff?
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Okay, so one of the things that I noticed in here, and this just sort of like put up my spidey signals, is they talk specifically about the Griggs versus Duke decision, which was like in the 1980s. There was a Supreme Court decision that took away standardized testing as a mode to get into the workplace because it was found to be racially biased. And they are saying because of that Supreme Court decision, now more and more jobs, you need a college degree in order to get that job, which I feel like is like a little bit cynical. But the reason that I'm bringing it up is like, it made me look at, I'm like, okay, what other Supreme Court decisions? They specifically say that they should overturn the Supreme Court decision, but it made me think, Burgerfell, that what are you looking at that the Supreme Court is likely to take up in the same way that Roe v. Wade kind of shocked and didn't surprise us?
Yeah, I mean, likely to take up is more difficult. I think that they would like them to take up birth control. They would like them to take up Griswold, right? Like, that is definitely the next big step. I think that before they go directly to the Supreme Court, I think what we're more likely to see is this sort of like chipping away approach like we saw with abortion, where they don't want to come out and say, yeah, we want birth control to be illegal, because they know how incredibly unpopular that is. And so what's much more likely to happen is they just make it harder and harder to obtain. And one of the reasons I focused on young women for this is that I think is going to be the next big attack on birth control, is going to be young women and Republicans saying hormonal birth control specifically is dangerous for young women and it shouldn't be available to them at all. They have already laid that groundwork by banning in certain states gender affirming care for teenagers, right? By saying hormones are dangerous for young bodies, so we need to ban gender affirming care. Well, guess what else is a hormone, right? Like they are making it easier and easier for themselves to make this argument that anyone under 18 shouldn't have access to hormonal birth control. So I think that is going to be like the next big step. And then we'll start to see those court cases. But in terms of like the big Supreme Court case with repro rights that I think we know is going to happen is shield laws. Is the protections for abortion providers in blue states. They want to make sure that they can extradite those providers to places like Texas and Louisiana, and throw them in jail there.
So if you were an abortion provider and you provided one in a blue state where there are different laws, they want to be able to charge you in another state?
They want to be able to charge you if, let's say you're an abortion provider in California or New York, and they've actually, like the AG of Louisiana has issued extradition requests for abortion providers in New York and California. If you send abortion pills by mail, which is legal in all 50 states, that's why the abortion rate hasn't gone down, because people are getting abortion pills shipped to them. The law in New York and California says that's perfectly legal and you can do that and we're going to protect you. Texas and Louisiana don't like that, and they want to extradite those providers for shipping abortion pills, and put them in jail. And they don't say this as much, but I think they would also very much like to extradite abortion providers who might provide care to someone who travels from Texas, right? So it's the criminalizing providers. They're absolutely going to try to criminalize patients as well. It's sort of, again, the shipping away approach, the slow roll. So providers first, helpers second, like abortion funds. They're trying to pass all these laws that make it illegal to lend someone money for an abortion, to give someone gas money, right? To give someone gas, to give a teenager, it always starts with teenagers, give a teenager gas money so that they can leave the state for care. They want to make that illegal. They're trying to make pro-choice websites illegal in these states, pro-choice ads, so you can't even learn information about where to get an abortion. And so, again, they're just trying to remove access layer by layer, and enforce all of these really draconian bans across the country, no matter where you live.
Wow. I guess here's my question, because one of the things that I often hear is that a lot of people really, when you poll people, they really don't have a problem. Like the average person doesn't have a problem with abortion, like even conservatives, right?
Yeah.
And so I guess my question is like, is anyone's attitude actually changing around abortion?
No one wants this, right? Like nobody wants this. Nobody wants these bans. Even Republicans, even in the reddest, most conservative states, they do not want these bans. Abortion bans, I would argue, are the most unpopular laws in America. And this is like progressives' most popular issue. 81% of Americans do not want government involvement in abortion at all. That is an incredible number. That is like an incredibly popular issue. But for whatever reason, we still talk about abortion like it's something that the country is evenly split on. We're not. The country is not. The country feels like a very specific way about this. And honestly, it's an issue that only gets more popular with time for us, unfortunately, because of how these laws are impacting people. It's only going to be a matter of time before everyone knows someone who's been harmed by an abortion ban. And so the further out we get from Roe, the more popular abortion gets. And that's part of the reason we're seeing Republicans try to make it harder and harder to vote on ballot measures, right? To make abortion legal. They don't want voters to have a say because they know how voters feel.
Well, what's interesting is another thing that I found in Project 2026 for the purposes of this, but it kind of seems like they're also coming for IVF. So the report states policymakers should commit to protecting life from fertilization. Okay, to me, that seems like you want us to have kids, just not like that. And then my other question for you is like, Trump, I did a lot of research on this, has made some measures to expand IVF access. I'm not saying that they're good. I'm just saying there have been a couple of things. So my first question is like, how the hell do they come for IVF when all they want is for people to have babies? And then the second thing is Trump breaking from places like the Heritage Foundation when he expands IVF access?
Right. It is, again, one of their more unpopular takes, but it does come back to like, yes, they want us to have babies, but really it is more about the control, and it is more about putting women in their place. And it is more about these religious beliefs around when life begins and, everything like that. And so one of the things that we're going to see, again, they know how unpopular it is to say we just want to ban IVF outright. So they're going to do something similar to like trap laws with abortion clinics, where they just pass all these little laws that make it impossible for abortion clinics to operate. They're going to do the same thing with IVF clinics, where they just pass all of these little regulations, all of these requirements that make it harder and harder for them to operate, but that Republicans still get to say, we didn't ban IVF. What do you mean? These are safety measures. These are, we're just trying to make sure that they do this responsibly. And so that is their sort of route forward. With Trump, there have been cases where like the anti-abortion movement is not as happy with them as they could be. They would like him to do more. They would like him to ban the shipping, the interstate shipping of abortion pills. They don't like everything he said on IVF. But what like the measures he's enacted on IVF are pretty nominal. They don't do a lot, and so they're sort of okay with that, right? Like they're like, okay, he needs to say this thing in public, and he needs to make this like a big splashy moment so that he can pretend that he's pro reproductive rights in some way. But because it doesn't actually do much, they don't have a huge problem with it. You know what I mean? But they are pissed off that the administration is not going after interstate shipping of pills. That is something that they do really want him to take on, that he won't, because it's too unpopular.
Yeah. Right. That's the thing. At the end of the day, he knows these are unpopular policies. He'll actually lose people from this.
Yes. He knows it's a super unpopular issue. Sorry, I was just going to say, it's a super unpopular issue, and that's why so much of what we're seeing happen right now with the tax are not happening on that national level, where he doesn't have to take responsibility for that, and instead they're focusing all on state laws, on right, and so it's still harder and harder to get an abortion, right? Like what Trump does is sort of not meaningless, but most of what is happening on a state and local level.
I just wanted to ask you, as we like wrap up here, I wanted to like go down a conspiracy theory with you.
I love a conspiracy theory.
Okay. Caroline Leavitt, Usha Vance, Katie Miller, all the women of reproductive age who are visible in MAGA are having babies this summer, right ahead of the 2026 midterms. And then we saw Nicki Minaj show up at the White House to do the Trump accounts for babies, where between now and the end of his term, surprise, surprise, if you have a baby, they'll put $1,000 into an account. I'm wondering, like, am I crazy to be like, this feels not coincidental, like that, like it feels pronatalist to me. Do you think, did this do that for you too? Or am I crazy?
I can't listen. I obviously I can't speak to why anyone gets pregnant or has a baby when they decide to, but I'm sure that it is not a coincidence that they are publicizing this as much as they are, right? And pushing that out that is very much what the White House wants to push right now, is a pronatalist agenda, is this idea that like we love babies, we want more white babies, right? So no, I don't think that part is a coincidence at all. And actually, one of the authors of this, what you're calling Project 2026, is on the team of White House advisors for encouraging, persuading women to have more babies.
Really?
So there's a connection there. One of the other authors used to lead the Civil Rights Division at the Department of Health and Human Services under the first Trump administration. So these are people with very, very close ties to the Trump administration and to the reproductive rights policy at the Trump administration.
That's so interesting.
So yeah, it is all very much connected. Most days I do feel like that Charlie Day meme where he has like all like the things in the background, like that. That's what I'm doing most days.
Yeah.
Well, Jessica, we are so grateful for what you do every day.
Thank you.
And we can you remind all of our friends where they can find you?
Yeah, they can find me at abortioneveryday.com, where I'm doing a daily newsletter, and I'm on Instagram and all of those other places just with my full name.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Oh, please come back.
Yeah, please come back.
Anytime. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jessica. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Woo.
Yeah. Well,
I'm not pregnant. I have my period.
I know.
Everyone
we both have
here
our
already knows that too.
Sorry
I'm not upset at all.
We came into the studio. Meredith said I have to use the restroom. I saw her grab a tampon, and then I said, "Oh, I got my period right after you," and everybody was in the room. But you know what? This is a show where we talk about our periods.
That is like where the difference of you being like I was raised so Catholic and you were raised so Jewish.
Yeah, I'm like,
that is where the different. No, I'm fine with people knowing. You guys, I have my period,
and I do too.
Day 3.
I do too. I also have my period, and I'm miserable on the inside.
I'm not as miserable because I'm on day like three now. So
yeah, I'm
we're
a couple
kind of
days behind you.
Yeah. But y'all, I had so much fun hanging out with you in the live and in the flesh.
Yeah.
And Jessica, what an amazing guest. We're so grateful to have her today.
Yeah.
And y'all, thank you so much. There's a ton of people who made today happen.
Yes.
Gabby, Alistair, Noelia, Mikey, Vienna, Anne. Thank you so much. Who did I forget?
I think that's everybody. Our parents, our dogs,
Eric.
your husband, Eric.
They're
everybody
gonna be like,
we've
who
ever
are
met.
all these fucking people?
Yeah, they're just people. But we are so excited to be in a studio.
We are so excited, and we're going to be back in the studio on Friday.
In theory, yeah.
Yes, and tomorrow we're going to be back with a regular episode.
Yep.
We have great guests.
We have my friend Carrie Farrell, who you probably know from the internet. She has a new book out, and then Jamel Bowie, who is both a New York Times writer, and then he's all over TikTok. He has this really interesting combo of like elite old school media cred, but also like speaks very well to the TikTok generation.
just like you.
Just
like
we're
you.
trying. We're trying.
All right, y'all.
We're
Stay
trying.
safe out there. We'll be
Yes.
back tomorrow and Friday. All right. Thanks for hanging out.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.